I'm not the type to air personal drama online, but I'm out of options. I need clarity, or at least understanding. My name's Amanda. I'm 34, married, well I was, to a man named Brian, and we have a 7-year-old daughter, Lila. At least, we had a daughter together. It started out simple. Brian told me he wanted to take Lila on a father-daughter weekend. Just the two of us, he said, to unplug, go hiking, do s'mores, all that cheesy stuff. I thought it was sweet. Brian had been working long hours lately. He's a contractor, mostly seasonal work, but busy spring through fall. I'd been the primary caretaker during the school year while juggling my part-time job at the library. So, a bonding weekend? Sure. I even helped him pack. Lila was excited, bouncing around the living room with her little backpack. She kept saying, "Daddy says we're going to find buried treasure." That Friday afternoon, I kissed her goodbye and waved them off as they drove out in his pickup. I had no clue it would be the last time I'd see her. By Sunday night, they still weren't back. No calls, no texts. I figured they lost reception, or were just running late. I wasn't worried yet, but then Monday came, and I got a text. "I'm not coming back. Lila is safe. You'll understand soon." I froze. At first, I thought it was a prank, but the number was his. I called. No answer. Texted. No reply. Panic set in. I contacted his sister, his mom, his friends. None of them had heard from him. I drove to the ranger station at the park he said he'd take her to. No sign of them checking in. By Tuesday, I was at the police station. A missing persons report. They took it seriously. After all, he had taken a minor across state lines and stopped communicating. But the fact that he's her biological father made it legally murky. For days, I could barely sleep. Every knock at the door made my heart jump. Every phone call made my stomach turn. The detective assigned to the case, a calm, sharp woman named Officer Grant, was the only one who spoke to me straight. "He planned this," she said. "The truck's license plate was removed. He hasn't used his debit card since Friday. He knew what he was doing." I couldn't stop asking myself, why? We weren't perfect, but we weren't fighting. We hadn't even talked about divorce. And Lila adored both of us. The only thing that stuck in my mind was something Brian said a few weeks earlier. I'd almost forgotten it. "She deserves better than this town," he told me while watching Lila sleep. "Better than this life." The time. I thought he meant we'd eventually move. Start fresh. I never imagined he meant without me. The first week felt like a blur. Panic, police reports, sleepless nights. I tried to keep it together, but it felt like my brain was split in two. One half trying to function for work, for survival, the other frozen in fear for Lila. Officer Grant updated me regularly, though there wasn't much good news. They issued an Amber Alert, flagged Brian's truck in national databases, and checked security footage at gas stations and rest stops within a 200-mile radius. But Brian had thought this through. Too well. Then, on the 9th day, I got a knock at my door. It wasn't Brian. It was someone I hadn't seen in years. His ex-girlfriend, Sarah. I barely knew her. She was from before me, college days. But she looked nervous, like just being here was a risk. She held up her phone and said, "I think you need to see this." It was a picture. Lila and Brian, taken just 2 days ago, smiling in front, of a playground in Boise, Idaho, Boise, over 500 miles away. "How did you get this?" I asked, nearly shaking. She told me Brian had reached out to her, said he was starting over, and that he had to protect his daughter from what was coming. He didn't explain more, but he sent the photo, maybe trying to prove Lila was safe, or to manipulate sympathy. I turned the image over to the police. It was the first confirmed sighting since they disappeared. But what stuck with me was the way Sarah said it. What was coming? I started digging through our old stuff, trying to piece together what could have pushed Brian to do something so drastic. That's when I found a folder in the garage he must have forgotten. Inside were old bills, court documents, and a sealed letter addressed to me. I opened it. It wasn't long, just a few lines in Brian's messy handwriting. You don't understand what they were planning. I couldn't let it happen. She's better off far away. You'll thank me one day. No signature, no details. I brought the letter to Officer Grant. She looked as confused as I felt. Who's they? She asked. Family? Someone from school? That's when something clicked. The school. 3 weeks before the trip, we had a tense meeting with the school counselor about Lila's behavioral assessments. They thought she might be on the autism spectrum, high functioning, and were recommending testing, and maybe even specialized placement. Brian hadn't taken it well. He told the counselor, "She's just creative. She doesn't need a label." After that meeting, he barely spoke about it again. But I remembered seeing something in his eyes that day, a mix of fear and defiance. Was that it? Did he think I was going to agree to testing and therapy, and he'd lose control? Was he so afraid of her being labeled that he decided to take her away instead? If so, he didn't just run. He kidnapped her from her future. The photo from Boise went public after the local police released it. It was the first real break in the case, and the media caught on fast. Father abducts daughter after bonding trip. That was the headline. At first, people were sympathetic. I got messages from moms across the country, offering prayers, tips, even fundraising links. But the internet doesn't stay kind for long. Once Brian's letter was mentioned, the vague warning about what they were planning, the tone shifted. Some random Twitter thread went viral. Maybe the sexy mom was going to medicate the kid or force therapy. The dad did what he had to do. Soon I was being painted as the villain. Strangers speculated that I wanted to send Lila to some facility, that I didn't love her the way Brian did. I was called a cold mother, a system pawn, even a kid trafficker in one comment section. The irony? I hadn't even agreed to the testing yet. We were supposed to discuss it together. I started locking my social media accounts. Then I deleted them altogether. But none of that mattered. I was no longer just a mom looking for her child. I was part of someone else's narrative. A new lead officer, Grant, called me late one night, almost 2 weeks after the Boise photo. A tip had come in. A woman at a church food bank in Eastern Oregon recognized Brian's photo. Said he and a little girl had stopped by for supplies. He used a different name, David Peterson. Grant said there were rumors he was staying off-grid, using cash, working under the table at a small logging outfit up north. That night, I made a decision I hadn't allowed myself to consider. I was going to go find him myself. I didn't tell the police. Not yet. I needed to be smart. And quiet. If Brian even suspected the cops were close, he might vanish again. This time for good. I took time off work, packed light, and drove toward Eastern Oregon with one goal: get close enough to see my daughter. Hear her voice. Know she was okay. The cabin. After 3 days of following vague directions and asking quiet questions in small towns, I found it. A beat-up A-frame cabin outside a town of maybe 300 people. No cell reception, no neighbors. Just trees and silence. I parked down the road and walked up. My hands were shaking. Through a small window, I saw her, Lila, sitting on the floor in her pajamas, drawing. She looked healthy, clean. She wasn't in distress. And then Brian walked in with a bowl of what looked like soup and crouched next to her. He kissed the top of her head like everything was fine. I couldn't breathe. I backed away, barely making it to the car without breaking down. I called. Officer Grant from the nearest payphone gave the address and waited. The cabin was raided at dawn. Not with guns blazing. It was careful, quiet. Officer Grant made sure of it. She told me later they didn't want to risk traumatizing Lila. Brian was arrested without resistance. Lila was found safe, physically, unharmed. She was coloring when they came in. No sign she even knew something was wrong. That part broke me. When I arrived at the child services office hours later, Lila ran to me and hugged me like nothing had happened. She was happy, calm. She looked up at me and said, "Did Daddy tell you about our adventure?" I smiled and nodded, but inside, I shattered. The custody battle Brian was charged with custodial interference, endangerment, and unlawful flight to avoid prosecution. But because he didn't harm her, didn't cross international lines, and because he's her biological father, it wasn't as clear-cut as I'd hoped. His lawyer argued that Brian believed he was protecting his child, that he feared I was going to medically pathologize her and strip away her identity. They even used the school documents and my earlier comments about being open to evaluations. In court, I had to sit there and listen to someone paint me as the monster, the one who was going to drug my child or label her broken. The judge wasn't buying it. Neither was child services. They'd done a psychological evaluation of Lila after the rescue. She was a bright, curious child, a bit emotionally intense, yes, but not in any danger from me or her environment. Brian was found guilty. He served 14 months in state prison and lost joint custody. He's only allowed supervised visitation, now, and only if Lila wants it. So far, she hasn't asked. What came after? It's been 2 years. Lila is thriving. She's in a new school that embraces her creativity and uniqueness. No labels needed. We did eventually pursue a psychological evaluation, but only after she asked questions herself. She wasn't on the spectrum, but she's a deep thinker, sensitive, observant. Sometimes she asks about the trip with Daddy. I don't lie, but I keep it age appropriate. I tell her he made a mistake, that he thought he was helping, but he didn't do it the right way. She nods and usually says something like, "I just wanted to come home, but he said you'd be mad." That's what hurts most. He lied to her, not just about me, but about what was best for her. I still get comments online, even now, from people who only know part of the story. But I've stopped reading them. I know my truth. And more importantly, Lila knows hers.